One of the best stories so far out of the gate in this young NHL season is the Calgary Flames. To discuss that, Salim Valji now joins us from beautiful Canmore, Alberta. Salim, 4 wins in the first 7 nights of the NHL season. Now the team had a bit of a team bonding, a getaway, but nothing bonds them more than winning. What's it been like over the last few days with these guys?
It's been a good atmosphere. Even Mackenzie Weegar said kind of jokingly, yeah, of course it's more fun to come to the rink and do these team bonding activities when you are winning and when you are one of the feel-good stories of the league this season. And, you know, there were so many questions about this club coming in, right? No one really thought that they'd be here among league leaders early on, but here we are, a younger group, questions about the future of some veterans and if they'd want to maybe continue their careers in situations where the Stanley Cup was more of a possibility. But all those veterans, Gino, they've said the right things both publicly and privately. And I think they've done a good job of stabilizing a group that is a little bit younger, right? You look at the fact that Connor Zary has a big role on this team. Matt Coronado, Dustin Wolf, even other players that are early on in their careers but have taken significant strides and are a huge reason that the Calgary Flames are 4-0. It's a tight-knit group. I think they really are relishing, Gino, the fact that we don't have to badger them about trade center and trade deadline questions. Even Nazem Kadri jokingly mentioned that a couple of days ago. And I think, Gino, that took a really big toll on them last season. This time around, there's not really a ton of pending free agents. They're a lot more free. They're a lot more loose. And, Gino, a couple of players have said that when you know that all 20-something guys in that locker room want to be in Calgary and wear the jersey, that makes a big difference. It bonds the team much closer. And as a result, Gino, you can talk about a rebuild, retool, whatever. They've exceeded expectations early on, and they really should be talked about as one of the feel-good stories of the league so far.
Okay, but I mean, you talked to Craig Conroy, the general manager of the Calgary Flames. You saw what he had to go through last year. I know you mentioned the fact that the players don't want to be badgered about it, but I'm going to badger you about it. Do you think there's any way this start changes Connie's plans in the short term? Because we were still under the understanding that he was still going to be moving some bodies to rebuild, retool this organization.
To me, Gino, the most interesting 2 players in that regard are Andrei Kuzmenko and Rasmus Andersson. And Kuzmenko is a free agent coming up in the summer here. Dan Vladar as well. So I think this success maybe has to sustain itself a little more before you get into conversation about if they add instead of subtract. But the truth is, Dan Vladar is fighting for a contract over here. He wants to be the #1 goalie. He loves it in Calgary. I think Andrei Kuzmenko is open to sticking around as well. Andersson's a little bit different, because he's got another year on his deal after this season. He's a little more, he's a younger player, a blue liner. But in terms of adding and whatnot, I think we're a little bit early here. I know that they have prospects in the pipeline, right? Like Hunter Brusevich is likely going to play NHL games this season, as with Artem Grushnikov. Those players, the Flames are going to have to make room for these prospects at some point, right? Even looking at Yegor Sharangovich getting injured, well, that meant Samuel Honzek made the club as a 19-year-old, and now Matt Coronado is filling in his spot. So I think it's a little bit early to be talking about the Calgary Flames as a buyer at the deadline, but 3 names to keep in mind, Andrei Kuzmenko, who's a free agent, and then Dan Vladar, who's also an unrestricted free agent, plus Rasmus Andersson, whose situation is a little bit different. But it does open up Conroy for some interesting possibilities, right? He has referenced the Dallas Stars a few times as a club whose path he wants to follow. The Stars never tanked, and instead, they got really quality draft picks from players outside the top 10, Jason Robertson and Wyatt Johnston and others. And I think the Calgary Flames are trying to do similar. And not only are they playing well, Gino, but they've got a prospect pipeline that's suddenly burgeoning, right? Not only Brusevich, but Zane Parekh. So Conroy has some fascinating options, but at some point he will have to figure out how to get these prospects into the NHL lineup on a regular basis, and that might involve dealing a veteran or 2.
Speaking of veterans, for too many nights after games, you had to put the microphone in front of Jonathan Huberdeau and say, what's going on? Why aren't you producing the way you were producing before you joined the Calgary Flames? Now, when you say what's going on, it's a positive thing. Huberdeau's got 3 goals, 3 assists in the first 4 games. How's he feeling out there now that is he exhaling? And B, what's different? What's going on for him right now?
There are a few things, Gino. Huberdeau, I think, has always been gracious, even during his struggles. He never ducked the media. He never refused an interview request. He always owned it publicly and privately. And he's an extremely popular teammate in the room. Guys love him. They appreciate how much he struggled early on with the weight of a franchise over his shoulder. And I think people in that locker room are really happy for the human being of Jonathan Huberdeau because he's found this early success. And I think there are a few factors here, Gino. Number one, Ryan Huska flew out to Quebec this summer to meet with Jonathan, to get on the same page, to talk about different ideas. And if you look at it, Gino, number one, he's on the penalty kill now. And he played on the penalty kill in Florida during that record season. He had 115 points a few seasons ago. He was a fixture on their penalty kill. I think he actually played more penalty kill per game than Sasha Barkov. So that's a factor. And he's looked good on the penalty kill here in Calgary. He said he wants to take pride. He's taking pride in that new role and being more defensively responsible. And a couple of games ago, Gino, Jonathan Huberdeau was out killing the game with time on the clock. And that goes to show how much his role has grown here in Calgary. So that meeting in the summer, Gino, I think really did set the table for Jonathan Huberdeau's success. And secondly, it's kind of crazy, Gino, to think about the number of centers that he's had over the years here, right? Elias Lindholm, even Connor Zary, Nazem Kadri. There's been a few others. And it's been Martin Pospisil who's opened up the ice for him and with whom he's found great chemistry with. And I see a little bit of Nazem Kadri in Pospisil's game where north-south, he antagonizes opponents, and that's opened up ice for Huberdeau to create. So if you look at his new line alongside Anthony Mantha, who's also had a really good season, the fact that Huberdeau, he had that meeting with Huska over the summer, he's more engaged defensively. And Gino, I think it's really interesting that Huberdeau said a couple of times that he's seen a sports psychologist. He's tried to change his outlook and his perspective, and that's been a big factor as well for him. So you add that all up, I think he's finally starting to feel comfortable with the fact he's got a big contract, but with the expectations and just how to handle himself. And there's no doubt, Gino, that people in that locker room love him, and they're really happy that early on we don't have to ask him as many of those questions a season ago. And he's really, he looks like a different person. He's smiling more. He's more engaged. He just looks like he's exhaled.
You know what? It's really nice. Whether you're a Flames fan or not, it's nice to see that Huberdeau's got things, at least in the early going well for him. Something else I found impressive so far is that, covering the Calgary Flames, you had to hear, Connor McDavid, we're facing Connor McDavid. Everybody wants to talk about him. You beat him. Connor Bedard. Everybody wants to talk about him. You beat him. Matvei Michkov. He's coming. You beat him. How important was it to be able to, while everybody's talking about the opponent you're facing, the Calgary Flames step up and come off with the victory?
Yeah, it's big, right, Gino? And if you take a look at their defense, like it is Rasmus Andersson and Kevin Ball, who are that shutdown pair. And Craig Conroy has made a few good moves in his time here, Gino, in the big chair. But Kevin Ball is a really underrated player. He's very young. He reminds me a little bit of Chris Tanev, but he's got a longer reach and maybe he doesn't throw his face in front of blocked shots as much as Tanev did over here. But Ball's been outstanding. And if you take a look at that Tuesday game, Gino, how many guys in this league can chase down Connor Bedard on a partial breakaway? I know Bedard's not the fastest, but there was Kevin Ball cutting him down the perfect angle. And as a result, Bedard was off the score sheet. He didn't really factor in that Chicago loss on Tuesday night. And Ball's been huge. He uses his stick so well at the blue line. And that's opened up Rasmus Andersson, right, Gino? Andersson is tied with Huberdeau for the team lead in points. And that goes to show that, these two have formed a chemistry. Ball knows what he is. He's not the flashiest. He might not make the TSN highlight of the night, but what he will do is give you strong minutes in his own zone. And keep in mind, Gino, that he missed most of training camp. So he's had a good start. Mackenzie Weegar's picked up right where he left off. And then you look at some of the others, like Tyson Barrie's added a puck-moving dimension. Daniil Miramanov has come into his element. But if you take a look at the stars they've shut down, Michkov and McDavid and Draisaitl and Bedard, it's a group effort, and it's simple things. It's sticks in lanes. It's blocking shots. You saw Justin Kirkland versus Chicago just fearlessly going in front of shots. So there's a few reasons for that, but I think their defensive play really has been outstanding. And it's been a little bit under the radar, right? Like we talk about Dustin Wolf and Dan Vladar, but their defensive zone play has been really, really good. and it doesn't look like it's slowing down, right? And I think Kevin Ball is a big reason why. But, it's a team commitment because they know they don't have the stars that other teams have, and they play a punishing brand of hockey. They're 6th in the league in hits. They need everyone contributing, and everyone has at both ends of the rink so far.
And you, my friend, have contributed as well. Just to be clear here for our audience, that is not a green screen behind Salim. Those are real mountains, and that is a beautiful scenery. Buddy, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time away from Canmore. Go out, enjoy it, hike up the mountain, have a great time, and we'll talk to you again, my friend.
Nothing better than hiking up a mountain in a suit, hey, Gino. So we'll talk to you soon.
Change your shoes, brother. I don't want to lose you on that hike.